love our little jingle. Welcome to Hello Chaos Podcast. This is a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic minds and lives of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Hello Chaos is one of many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That's Orange Whip, WIP, for work in progress. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs across affiliate cities through hyper-local media platforms designed to inform, inspire, and create connections to help founders along their journey. We tell real, raw, unbiased founder stories, and why our mantra is where aha meets oh shit. Orange Whip is an all-in-one content hub for founders with fresh and engaging stories, curated calendars, and local resource directories. We've done the hard work for founders and entrepreneurs, so they only need one go-to place, a trusted place to find the local information they need. My name is Jennifer Sutton. My friends and family call me JJ. I am the founder of Orange Whip and your podcast host today. We record live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and then publish on all podcast platforms on the following Sunday. This episode is sponsored by the Upstate LGBT Chamber. As the first and only LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce in the state of South Carolina, the Upstate LGBT Chamber gives LGBT plus professionals and allies the resources they need. Upstate LGBT Chamber is an advocate that understands that diversity, equality, and economic empowerment are vital for any healthy community. From creating connections and professional development opportunities to providing resources and advocacy, the Chamber is here to support you and a more inclusive and diverse upstate business community. For more information, go to their website at upstatelgbt.org. On our podcast today, we welcome Bethany Winston, founder of Kidding Around Media. Welcome, Bethany.
Hey, how are you?
How are you? It's our 60th podcast, so welcome. We are
awesome.
6-0. You're a milestone for us.
Yay.
Yay. We should have like balloons. Well, so just to kick us off, Bethany, tell us about your founder and entrepreneur journey. Give us the little elevator speech.
So I have an interesting story. I was a stay-at-home mom over 10 years ago. And, a lot of people start their business because they want to make money. But I honestly miss working. So I was watching my kids at home and I was just like, man, I miss working on the computer and doing the kinds of problem solving that came along with a job. And at that point, they were pretty small and my husband was in school. So I couldn't really figure out the path to a traditional job. So I had a computer, I had the internet, and I thought, okay, I bet there's a way to make myself a job on the internet. I mean, right?
Yeah.
And I did some research and realized at that time, blogging was just really, it had been going for a little while, but it was starting to hit its heyday. A lot of people were starting to blog. And so I thought, okay, I like to write. That's something I could do. So I started a blog and I wrote about children's books for a couple months, which I did not really know anything about, but that was my big idea and did that. And then several months down the line, I've been working on this blog, had kids activities and things like that. I was at an event in Greenville and the light bulb just came on that here I was in my hometown and it had grown so much from when I was a kid in the 90s that there were so many things, parks, events that I had no clue about myself and a lot of my friends didn't, even though I had lived there almost my whole life. And at that time, all we had was a print publication. So you would have to go to the grocery store to find out what events have been scheduled. And that calendar was often out of date by the time it was published.
Because it was only it was every other month. It wasn't even a monthly. I think it was 6 times a year or something.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it rains or whatever. And, the Halloween events totally change. And plus, half the time events aren't even announced until the last minute.
Right.
So I realized that this was just an open door that, people my age wanted to go online. They wanted to find their events online. They wanted to find things for their kids. And so that kind of brought me to the idea of starting Kidding Around Greenville, which has just grown from there.
And you've gone from just focused on Kidding Around Greenville, and now you're looking at me, you kind of changed your name, Kidding Around Media. Tell us about that. What that process was like.
Yes. So several years ago, I decided to rebrand to, call myself Kidding Around Media in a lot of my different professional contexts. Because first of all, I wanted to distinguish what I was doing that was more than just a blog. What I had started with Kidding Around Greenville was a website and a media source for families to find information. And it wasn't just an adventure of my own. I
Right.
had a full team and everything. So that was one thing. And then also just to be able to expand into other regions. So right now I'm working on expansion to Colombia and hopefully further after that.
Very
And the
good.
media name gives me that space to do that.
I love it. And that's Columbia, South Carolina, right?
That's
Right.
correct.
For our non-South Carolinian
Yes.
listeners. What's been the most rewarding aspect of this journey you've been on?
I think for me, just that to have a business is so integrated with my home and my family has been very rewarding. I remember the earliest days of my business when I was doing a lot of the going around town myself to do
Mm,
research. And yeah, I would take my kids and I take my husband with me, and we
mm.
just have these great memories as a family. And so that's been really special to have something where I can just bring my kids along to work with me and they have a great time.
Oh, that's great. So what has surprised you about being a founder, being a business owner? What has surprised you the most?
Oh, there's just so much to learn. I think, you're just like always like I feel like there's always like these questions of things where you think you have it figured out and then you get to a new stage of business and you realize, "Oh, wait, I need to figure out something totally new that I've never had to figure out before." And I find that really challenging. I also think that's some of the fun part about starting a business is that you're never bored, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I have something in common of we both are graduates of South Carolina has a minority business accelerator, and you were a graduate of last year's cohort. I was a 2018 graduate. Why did you want to, like, what intrigued you about going into an accelerator program? Because you'd been in business, like I'd been in business for when I went through it, like 6 or 7 years. And you'd been around, um, for about almost 10 years when you went through it. What made you take that leap? Why were you interested in an accelerator?
Well, I mean, I think as a business owner, one of the things that keeps me going is feeling challenged and, feeling like I have a goal of something to
Mm,
work on. And I had actually gotten to the point where I had set some goals for myself when I started my business that felt really unreachable. And I had reached them. So that was
oh,
really exciting, but it also left me feeling like I didn't know what to do next
right.
and just, like I didn't have any focus in my business. So I was at that point and then I got the email about the Minority Business Accelerator program and just reading that and seeing it was a program for people who already had the basics down, but they were just like stuck trying to figure out
Mm.
how to go to that next level, which for me was how do you expand into another area? I just felt so stuck with that question. So that's what brought me into the program, and it really did help me be able to restart and start thinking in new ways.
What was the biggest aha moment for you there?
I had a lot, but I think I had a couple. Like one was just learning how to ask for help.
Mm.
I think I have a really bad habit of just sitting behind my computer, and when I get stuck, I'm just like, okay, I have Google and myself,
Google's
and
your friend. Well, so like
and
Google's your
that
friend.
works a lot of the time, but sometimes you do need to just reach out to somebody and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'm stuck. Will you help me?" And just realizing how many people there are out there who really are open to chatting and, for that mutual conversation of helping each other. And then also, I learned a lot about finance. I've
Mm,
always been very conservative with my business finances. So that's good, from a standpoint of keeping you stable, but
right.
just realizing that's not always the best way to grow. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money and learning to be more comfortable with that.
Right, right. And that, they teach, you know, business finances is very different than personal finances and how you think
Yes.
about money. Um, and that was something I learned, I think, in year one when I launched our business in 2013. That was the advice I kept getting from other, you know, CEOs of like, bigger corporations that were in my place at one time. And they were like, you're going to think about money differently. And I think that was a reminder when I went through the cohort of, oh, yeah, you have all these people looking at your books and,
Yes.
and going, Why are you doing it this way? Well, isn't that how you're supposed to, and how you're supposed to do it? No, change it up.
Yeah.
Um, so tell us about your biggest, like, oh shit, your biggest, oh crap moment, along your journey.
I think for me, that would probably have been COVID. I mean, I think
Ah,
that's probably true for a lot of people, but,
yeah.
you
Why was it so
know,
challenging because of events shut down or?
well, we went from having like I'm trying to remember how many page views we were getting a month in, but a
Mm,
significant amount because it was right there in the spring to like almost no traffic
ugh,
overnight. So, you're looking at like, okay, our commodity is our traffic, that's how we sell
mm,
everything to our advertisers. And then on top of that, all the people who buy advertisements with us, like they're not making any money. They just
right.
shut down.
Yeah.
So it was a big moment to be like, okay, how do we still stay relevant and valuable in a world that just shifted, where the things that we normally talk about, summer camp, events, are just simply not happening.
Mm,
And also, weather this storm with our advertisers so that we can partner with them and get, coming through this together.
right. How did you pivot?
So we as a team brainstormed together and I'm fortunate to have some really creative people and we came up with ideas of like, we're like, okay, we know our readers are out there. What are they wanting right now? Like,
Right.
where are they stuck? So we started creating new content that was directly related to that moment. So a lot of stay at home content at that moment, then shifted to
Okay.
outdoor content, also school content. So we had
Uh,
never reported on schools before, but we did some really micro school reporting at that time because people were really frantic to know what is going on with school. Is
yeah.
it going to
Is it
start?
gonna
Like, what do
stay
I need to know to
open? How
start it?
yeah.
Yep.
The safety measures, all that. Did
So I actually
did
spent
yeah, go ahead. No, 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 go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I was spending a couple hours when I was listening to a school board meeting and just writing down all the stuff because you would learn so much from that. And then we published an article and people could go and see like what happened at the school board meeting
Yeah.
and what they need to know.
Have you stayed with that content? I mean, is that content you were like, "Oh, wait, our readers like this. We need to continue with reporting on schools or even like stay at home, just safety," or is that was just that certain time frame?
It was definitely more relevant then, but we do still like report on school changes.
Mm.
If there's things coming out, we try to report on that right away, but not to the same level.
So I'm curious, so when you're looking to expand to Columbia, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing on expansion? Is it access to capital or, like, what's stopping you?
Right now, my biggest challenge is figuring out how to hire in that market. A
Okay.
lot of our current employees in Greenville have come to us because they follow our site, and so they already have a good feel for what we're like and our,
Mm,
culture, and we get lots of applicants every time I put out a job. So being a new market and trying to figure out, like, how do we find the right people? Because to me, that's so important, like, on my team, I wanna have the right people that are gonna fit in, and they're gonna publish the kind of content that we know will work in that market.
mm. And how big is your team now?
I'm gonna have to like count because it keeps on changing. But we have 4 employees right now,
Okay.
and we also have a couple contractors that work on a regular basis.
And how's it been managing expanding people?
I've had to learn a lot about, putting together procedures and working
Mhm.
on training. So that's definitely been a challenge, but I am a big fan for hiring because, I know so many people in my hyperlocal space who might do everything themselves, even years into, running a website. And I'm
Right.
really glad I don't enter events anymore. It keeps you from growing.
Yeah.
So
Where do you feel like you've struggled the most as a founder and business owner?
I think for me personally, the biggest struggle is like I tend to be a bit impulsive, like a lot of
Really?
I think creatives. And also like then I can get really bogged down at the end of a task. So, just being careful like on the front end of a new idea or new project, I've had to learn to slow down.
Mm,
It's like just because you have a new idea doesn't mean you need to start it tomorrow.
right.
Think it through, come up with a plan. And then, with plans, making sure like they're being executed all the way. So, keeping track of what I'm working on, keeping track of my goals, and then making sure I'm incrementally working on those goals, even through the tough parts or, as you get further down the
Yeah.
project and you get stuck.
Do you have like a good number two, or are you managing just like an over? Are you doing the heavy lifting from an operations and management, people management?
So we have an editorial section of our team,
Okay.
and I do have some great people on that side. They do a lot of the work, and while they pull me into things, they're making a lot of the day-to-day decisions themselves. And then on the client side, my team there's a little bit newer, so we're still doing a lot of training and development. But I believe that team will be pretty self sufficient in the next couple of months. So I do some management, but you know, I really try hard to find people that are going to just make everything shine themselves, and
Yeah,
so I can be free to look at the big picture and work on those projects.
I love it. And so, you and I know I'm a big media nerd. I've spent 30 years in the media space. How was it going from being a blogger and then shifting to really becoming a media company that is scalable to go into any market? How was that shift, like learning the advertising game and your ad rate card and all of that? How, did was that all just like learning on the go, or did you have a good team that taught you that? I'm just like, how did you make that shift?
So it was a slow shift for me. I started out as a blogger. When I started getting around Greenville, I did, like, from the very beginning, know that I didn't want it to be a blog. Like, I
Mm,
wanted it to be bigger than that. So that was always my goal. But especially at that time, as a woman who is also a stay-at-home mom running a website, it was very hard to get people to perceive me in that way.
yeah.
So I would get a lot of invites, as a mommy blogger, come do something for free. So in the beginning, it was a lot of just trying to establish my boundaries and to, figure out like what I wanted to just cover, because it was good content versus also making sure that I was selling advertising and I was getting places to take me seriously. But a lot of the advertising, I mean, I honestly guessed on a lot of it. I had friends who ran other hyperlocal sites that I would network with, that I would ask questions from and look at their rates. And then over time, I've learned to develop more sophisticated ways of doing advertising and brought in more information and knowledge, but it's taken time.
Yeah. Ugh. It's a hard
And
it's a hard
advertising is always
industry.
difficult.
It's
Yes.
always changing. It's the most highest evolving. Some things change and some things stay the same, but yeah. If you just curious, if you could change 2 things about your business today, what would you change?
Well, that's a hard question to
I
think
know.
for a second. I mean, I think I would, if I could change something, I need to really hire another person. So I
Mm,
think getting the other person in place would be a big change I would make. I really need somebody in Colombia. I also am really looking to develop our sales. Like, we've been
yeah.
very fortunate to almost all our clients come to us. They just email us, but I really need to work on our system for doing more outreach because I know there's sales I'm missing.
Yeah, yeah, relationships and sales. It is hard. Me Orange Whip is a media company too. It's one of the hardest things to scale up and tell your story. Um, what advice what advice would you give others? I mean, you've learned from kind of searching things on your own, asking questions. What other advice would you give an entrepreneur or a founder trying to scale up like you are?
I think, like, one of my number one things when I talk to entrepreneurs trying to scale up, especially in my market, is just knowing really well what market you're trying to scale into and
Mm,
having a concrete plan. So I learned that the hard way because initially I tried to expand into Spartanburg. And
oh,
it turned out that the markets were just too similar between Greenville and Spartanburg. Our readers overlapped too much. And the Spartanburg market wasn't large enough to really be able to support itself like the Greenville market can. So I ended up merging that back into my Greenville site,
okay. So you were gonna
because it
separate
really
it
didn't.
out to go kidding around Greenville, kidding around Spartanburg, and you're saying it just wasn't big enough. Spartanburg wasn't big enough from an advertiser slash traffic. Is that what that to be able to go, it's a standalone?
Yes, I mean, I had the site for
Mm,
years, but just honestly, like, it became clear that I could sell Spartanburg advertising through my
Oh,
Greenville site. So it was
okay.
just really at the end of the day taking money out of my main site versus being like its own money generator.
Okay.
So that was one of those lessons too, where you learn like sunk costs. Sometimes you go along with a project and you're like not making money and you just keep on doing it because you think, okay, eventually this will come. And,
Yeah,
I had to come to a point saying like, this is sunk cost. Like that's the only reason I'm still doing it. Just cut it off.
that's right.
And, that ended up being a good decision.
Huh. And as you look into, I mean, expanding into Columbia, um, was that just because of proximity to Greenville, or is it just a good, uh, it's just a good market to go into from a family, stay-at-home parenting kind of content?
So I looked at a couple different factors. I looked at what my competition was online and
Oh,
whether
okay.
or not I thought I could rank for keywords that I felt like were necessary for me to be successful in that market. And so I did a lot of research there. I also looked at the size of the metro and the median income of the metro and things like that I knew would help me determine whether or not there was enough of a market where I could sell enough advertising for it to be successful. Obviously the proximity to Greenville helps too. It helps that even though I don't live there, I can visit there, and it's just easier to actually make some relationships there than it would be if it was hours away.
Right. Do you and do you have like a path of, hey, we're going to go in Columbia, then we're going to hit Atlanta, Charlotte, or is it going to be you're going to saturate kind of South Carolina and then go outside? Do you have a vision for where um, all the cities you're going to go into? Kidding around
So
everywhere.
So I mean, obviously right now my focus is Columbia to see what I learn from that market. So, my goals may change after I learn how that market runs and how long it takes me for it to be successful. But, my plan is to go down through the states to also hit Charleston.
Okay.
We already have a lot of content for Charleston. And then I'm looking at the North Carolina area. Obviously Charlotte is very close, which
Yeah.
is a really good metro. Even though there's lots of competition, it's huge. And we have lots and lots of content, for that upper Western North Carolina area as well.
Like Asheville and is
Yes.
it? Yeah. Like, cause yeah, we're
I'd probably focus on the bigger metros first,
okay.
is my goal.
So
Because
like
I
Raleigh
learned from
and
Spartanburg is it's better to, have a like core in a larger metro and
ah,
then cover the other areas outside of it. At least,
okay.
that's what's worked for me so far.
What kind of like tools, are there any tricks of the trade that you've kind of picked up that said, hey, these tools and systems have helped me scale so that I can keep my team lean? Um, or are you still working on those? like most of us, we're all still trying to figure it out.
I mean, yes, it's like a work in progress, but we use Smartsheet a lot. I don't know that's superior to some of the other options, but we just have a lot of spreadsheets in Smartsheet. I like that you can attach, photos to it. You can write comments in it. So we use that system to manage our editorial content, to manage our sales. And then just recently, I went ahead and bought a subscription to Nutshell CRM.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So we chose that for a CRM. It seems like a really good lean CRM for a group like ours that doesn't have a massive client base, but
Right.
needs to be able to keep track of, their leads and their sales pipelines.
Yeah, we use Active Campaign. It's
Okay.
an all-in-one CRM marketing automation tool that um, is a fraction of the cost of Salesforce slash,
Yes.
any other marketing automation tool on top of it. I have to check out Nutshell. You said Nutshell, like
Yeah, it's called
N-U-T?
Nutshell.
Ah, I've never heard
It's
of that one.
Nutshell.
I'm gonna have to
But
look
yeah,
into that.
I like it because it works really well and it also has a really nice Gmail integration. So if
Okay,
you're in Gmail, you can just like share it right to Nutshell and it goes right to the person's profile. So
easy.
for us, it seems like it'll work. Yeah, and it integrates with QuickBooks too and with Panda Docs. So
What's
for us, I think once we get
what was PandaDoc? What is that?
so it's an online electronic signature program. So we
Oh,
haven't fully set up everything
okay.
yet, but we can set up
Kristen's like, okay.
SQU codes and actually set up our products so that we can take a customer from the closing of the sale to generating their contract to then their invoice by just like selecting the correct product as we go through the line. So I think once we get all the way set up, it's going to really streamline sales.
That is, might have to look into that for Orange Whip as we go. What keeps you up at night? Where do you stress?
Oh, yeah. So I would say the two biggest things are, you know, for me, I have like these 2 periods of year where I have all these massive contracts that come due. And like every year, for the most part, I mean, our clients are pretty happy. So we renew them all pretty much always. But like every time I hit that time, I like have nightmares that
Is
none
that
of them are
is that
going to
based
come
on a
in.
calendar year, or do you guys work in like a almost like a school year?
It's based on our clients' fiscal calendars because we have
Okay.
some that like to buy all their advertising up front, you know? So we have like the July fiscal calendar and the January one. And so that's always a time of year where I'm like losing sleep because I'm like, what if nobody buys? You know, like which is not realistic, but in the middle of the night it feels very realistic. And I think the other one is just hiring
Mm,
and like dealing with the whole making sure you have the right team. Like that for me it's really hard because on both ends sometimes you can't keep people on the team and that just hurts internally because
yeah,
they're people, and also finding the person when you need someone, I mean, it's so important to find the right people,
I know.
and it's hard.
It's critical. And it is hard. It's one of the hardest parts of the business. The people. Um, what, Bethany, as a female founder, have you found that there's been any barriers or challenges that you face where you're like, if you look at other founders, male counterparts, or are you just like, I'm just going to roll with it? I don't know if you have a perspective of being a woman-owned business that you want to share. Any stories that you feel your gender has made a difference in any way?
Yeah, so I grew up in a pretty conservative religious environment and didn't really think I would ever work a career. So that was just my mentality because of how I
Mm,
grew up. And so coming into owning a business almost accidentally because, like I said, I just missed work, so I
yeah,
created it.
you're an
Like
accidental
for me,
entrepreneur.
yes. And I was like, I come from a mentality where I was not even planning on necessarily working outside of the home. I thought like, oh,
Mm,
I'm gonna have all these children, I'm gonna be a homeschool mom. And like that was not a good idea because I'm actually like a terrible homeschool mom. I learned that during COVID. But but like reshifting and being like, I love working
mm,
and starting to recognize my gifts and that was really where I can, really use my gifts and my talents and overcoming like those barriers that I just had in my mind of like what I, as a woman, was supposed to do, which I mean, sounds really old fashioned as I'm saying it, but
yeah,
it
no,
was just like a whole mentality change to be, to realize like I can do these things.
mm,
And, I just need to access the right resources because I am behind my peers because I never did that earlier on.
right.
Even in the first years of my business, I like didn't really utilize the Greenville Chamber or
Yeah.
the networking opportunities.
Well, you're not alone there. I mean, even I was a part of the business community and was very career oriented, but not until I opened the business, I didn't know what resources to reach out to. I mean, I opened the business in 2013. I didn't do the MBA program to 2018, and it didn't even dawn on me that there was resources out there that could help me answer my questions.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I remember I went to the SBDC, so like it was the year before COVID, and I asked like the person I met with there, I was like, "Am I allowed to be here?" Like that was my question because
I,
even though I had a full balance sheet and I was doing like to me, I was like, I don't think I'm legit. I'm
right.
a person who works at home from my computer on the internet, and I'm a woman.
Right.
Like, am I allowed to be here?
Yeah. Am I really a business? Yeah. I think what is that, the imposter syndrome, I think a lot of people kind of
Yeah.
face, and it is true. I mean, I think from a female founder, what we hear often is the lack of confidence, like not just, you know, the imposter syndrome of am I enough? It's really like you said, it's like is this real? Like, am I allowed to do this? Can I succeed? Um, and those are real feelings that,
Yeah.
and I mean, we've heard that I think that's not a gender thing. I think we hear that we've heard that from male founders, but I think we hear it more often in the minority-owned community. But I did the same thing, but I didn't even like, when I looked up, can I start the bill? Like, go to the SBDC. I was so intimidated, which is so, working in corporate environment for 20 years, I could walk into a boardroom because I felt like I was shielded from I was under somebody else's brand.
Yeah.
It was such a different mindset of opening that I didn't feel like I was worthy, or I was so intimidated to even pick up the phone and call SBDC. So I think I even told like some other people, in our some of the other coaches with who like they walked into SBDC and were like, I need help. I didn't even have the courage to even do that. I was not. So the fact that you even went in there and said, am I even allowed to be there? I didn't even have that courage of, because I just was like, I can either figure it out or, I don't know if I
Yeah.
belong there. It's not clear, and that's one of the things we're trying to, Orange Web, we're trying to break down those barriers to go, yeah, that's what these resources are for.
Yes.
Because I don't think it's well communicated to like, if I looked up on the SPD way, it's not clear to me who belongs walking through those doors.
I think
Um,
sometimes we envision like this is what a business owner looks like.
right.
And
Yeah.
if we don't look like that in what we envision in our mind, we think we don't belong
Yeah.
in those communities, even though like I know in Greenville, they're incredibly welcoming.
Right. They're very welcoming, but you're right. If I don't see myself, and again, that's one of the reasons why I started Orange Whip was because I kept hearing that, not just from here in Greenville, but, hearing across the state, all like in multiple markets, whether it was San Francisco, San Diego, we heard it from Birmingham and Austin, Texas, Houston, Indianapolis. I mean, it literally, we were hearing it in all different pockets of, even the word entrepreneur has like a weird, people have a visceral reaction to that word. either,
Yes.
either they're like, I'm not an entrepreneur because I don't look like the 1%, those unicorns that are always featured in our markets, right? And so I'm not, they're like, I like founder, I'm a business owner. Um, but yeah, we've heard that of, I don't belong in that community because I don't look like anybody that's ever talked about. And so,
Right.
and I think it's to your point of how do we tell broader stories to make people feel, have the courage to go, you do belong there, so that we have like, I want to see myself. Um,
Yes.
I want to see more people that look like me, look like you, look like, what, 95% of every business owner. I mean,
Right.
that is, a very broad spectrum. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of the media do not showcase the reality of what a business owner, what a founder, what an entrepreneur really looks like. And so I'm glad you're on telling this because I can say it, but it's always good to hear it from other people to go, see, we keep hearing it. It's a repeat, not just in Greenville. And again, almost every one of the ecosystems in each of these markets, it is very welcoming. Like, they're shocked when I
Right.
talk to the other side and I talk to the organizations that are putting on these events or they have these resources. They're like, I don't understand. We have this. They should be just knocking down our door. And I'm like, well, one, your communication is terrible. like, like, it's like, I can't read what you like. I'm looking on your website. It's not clear, what you do. But they're super welcoming, but
Yeah.
they're not elevating I think the reality of who we are as founders, right?
Yeah.
Kristen's like going, yeah, because he's entering the founder
Yeah.
space. He's trying to
Okay.
start and scale uh, what do I say? It's a construction company, handyman. because there's
Right.
such a need for like there is an overwhelming need for handyman labor. And he's like, whoa, he'd been on the corporate side and now he's venturing out on he's having the same all the same the same questions and angst and um so we're not
I was thinking
alone,
while you're
Bethany.
talking,
Huh?
I think sometimes like too, you have those questions and
Yeah.
when you're not with other business owners enough, you think like you're dumb that you don't know the answer. And then you start realizing you're like, lots of people don't know the answer. Like lots of
No,
people don't know the answer to complicated legal questions or to tax
right.
questions. It's okay to not
It's
know.
okay to ask. Or, I find myself, I don't know about you, Bethany, but, my circle, um, I would say my close, like, friend circle, that I went to school with, that was I would say, my growing up in agency life business circle, um, have did not get it when I started the business. And
Yeah.
I realized they were great if I wanted to talk to them about topics like marketing topics or, um,
Yeah.
uh, you know, things that we had in common, but to ask about like running the bit, they were just like, well, I don't understand. Shouldn't you run the business to like vacation all the time? And, just work from home. And I'm like, no, no, I'm like, I'm scaling a business.
Right.
I'm hiring people. I have to get all this insurance. I've got to get, all this, like the infrastructure and stuff. And so that was the one thing that I was so grateful for by entering. I think the accelerator was my first kind of toe dip in engaging myself in I call it the ecosystem, the network, and finding a community because it's like,
Yes.
I don't know if I should ask these questions, like, because I'm not getting any support from friends or family because they just don't
Right.
know. Or it's like they
Right.
think I'm crazy for running a business or starting a business. And there's
Yeah.
no that we can't relate.
Yeah. Like I even dealt with people who, for a long time didn't even recognize it was a business. Because so many people, might blog just as a hobby. And even though I was doing so much more than blogging,
Right,
you
right.
know,
They
like, like we moved to Spartanburg, we're back in Greenville now, but I had several people who were like, oh, so you'll just quit catering around Greenville, right? It's like, no,
no.
my job.
That's right. Like, I'm trying to grow something. It's a business. Yeah. Um, and I don't know if that is something that is more female founders face than it's just the not being taken serious of,
Right.
um, I think I got that when I started the business. It wasn't until I bought our building, and this was for Brightco when I started Brightco in
Okay.
2013.
Yes.
Um, and I bought our building, which is an old house, in downtown Greenville, and we hung our shingle out, and that was in 2015. An actual shingle. We bought a
Yes.
building and put the sign out, had an open house, and I had more of what I would call like the business community, but like people that I had known for 20 years on the corporate side, who I'd been trying to like win over as a client. And I had more people that came like, oh, so like you're a real business. And I said, well, yeah. And they're like, well, so I can bring my business over to you. And I was like,
Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
What did you think I was doing for the last like 2 years, And I had a website and everything. Like, oh, I thought you were just, you had 4 kids. Your youngest, what my youngest at the time was two, maybe three. And it was, oh, I thought you left and started your own company as a hobby, as a way to stay at home. And I was like, "Well, no." And I didn't position like, when I started Brightco, it was like,
Right.
"We're a full service agency. We are, this is how we're serving." Like, I had set it up to scale, like, immediately. And, but that was an eye opener for me of, "Whoa, am I like is this a weird perception of female founders?" And I'm sitting there going, I would have never gotten that if I was
Right.
interviewing for a company. There would have
Right.
been, no question of, oh, she's a career driven. She's not she's here for the long haul on corporate America. But it was just interesting. That was how I was perceived in corporate world. But when I started the company, it was, oh, it's a hobby. Oh, it's a way
Yeah.
for you to stay at home. And not until literally I had a shingle that people started going, oh, you're serious. Like, it's a business. That's literally what people like, oh, it's a business. That was commentary. But it was an aha moment of, ooh, well, that's an interesting perspective. And I thought I was alone in hearing that.
Right.
And yeah, not until I joined the minority community and the woman owned community and started talking to other female founders, I was like, oh, we all get that.
Yeah, and I think there's like really a perception, like when you're saying that, that if you're a woman, especially with children, and you work from home, that like you're just kind of like doing this on the side.
Right.
You know that you're able to do all these other things. And it's like, but if you're working full time, even if you're home, you know, you are like working, like you're probably at a desk in
Right.
an office,
Right.
like trying to get work done and, not like able to like run errands all day or go do all these other things. I mean, I don't know, like I get that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the difference of like trying to create a business that scales versus just being a solopreneur that's just, picking up a
Yes.
gig or two. And I think that's where, having to differentiate ourselves as female founders,
That's good.
that is, I think that's something that's real. And we kind of get lumped into, oh, it's just a gig. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, no, you know, not, it's not a gig when we're taking risks
Right.
and
Right.
feeding other families and supporting
Yes.
other people. It is, it's a different mindset. Um, and yeah, that's, but, I don't know how to change that other than elevating and normalizing um, and creating that picture, I guess, of the reality. Um, Well, see, I was say you're pretty disciplined. So every time I see you, you're always so polished and you're very organized and you have scaled. I mean, you built something that was so unique. I was a huge follower right when you came out of the gate. I mean, obviously I had kids and you were that, easy one-stop place to go. Where are all the restaurants for the kids eat free? Where camps should I be aware of? Um, but are there daily routines or disciplines that you've kind of adopted to like keep your sanity?
Yes, I do have a lot of routines. Like I'm actually not really organized naturally. So sometimes everyone's like, you're so organized. It's like, well, you have to understand, like these are necessary structures, so I get anything done. but but yeah, so it varies for me like on how structured I am because I find I cannot be at the same level of structure every
Mm,
single day, but I always try to keep a really tight to-do list. So I have my whole to-do list and trying to incorporate my projects and my important tasks in there. And then every Monday at the beginning of the week I go through and I just like I organize my week. I figure out what I'm going to do every day. So instead of for me clocking hours, I clock tasks. Like what am I doing today? What am I going to accomplish? And with that, I have a lot of systems for keeping track of everything and also trying to delegate as much as is possible, so that I'm not getting bogged down in small things. Um, and for me too, I've read a lot of books that have helped. Like years ago, I read David Allen's Getting Things Done. I don't
mm,
know if you've ever seen that book.
I
It's
haven't.
very old, so it talks a lot about like an inbox with paper.
Oh,
But I have used that system for years now to go through my inbox. It's like a whole system of like, do I delegate? Do I discard? Or do I put it on to-do list? Or do I do it, if it takes 2 minutes or less?
right,
So I use a lot of systems like that just to keep my day moving so I don't get, bogged down because it's very easy to get in your email and be like, I just spent my whole day doing nothing
right,
because I was
right.
in email all day.
I've calendared my email time. So
Yes.
instead of having email up all the time, I have like blocks and windows during the day that I go in and I do the same thing of go through, and then, yeah, either I forward, delegate, clean, trash or whatever. And then, yeah. And then usually it's the end of the day where I'm doing a lot of reply in all my responses. But yeah, you got to have those like disciplines. I've talked about this before, Kristen, of, my thing is I do a daily, or excuse me, an end of week dump on Fridays
Okay.
of I literally just like paper, pen and paper
Okay.
of, that's just my method. I guess I could type it be faster, but I find just having the connection between your brain and using your hands.
Yes.
But I do a brain dump of anything, whether it's personal, it's work, it's team, it's, anything related, stress, tasks, whatever. I just put all of that on paper before the end of the week. And then on Sunday night, I come in and try to organize that. So I don't remember.
Okay.
And that's how I prep for the week.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. And that's also it just also alleviates my stress of I've,
Yeah.
I've dumped it. It's out. And then I can organize it later, but I try not to forget anything. So
Yeah.
because that's the worst when you're like, oh shit, what did I forget? Like, oh
I
no.
know. And I feel like I do. I mean, because my to-do list is kind of similar, where it's just like my brain dump of everything in my life.
Hmm.
And I even have like some micro lists where it's just things to remember,
That's right.
And I know I don't need to see that every day, but it's just there. But, there's so many years where I just try to keep track of it all in my head,
Yeah,
which is a bad system.
that's
But it's
not
like you
good.
carry such a huge mental load when you don't have things in a system where you don't have to remember.
Right, right. Yeah. So what do you do with your free time? I mean, you got a husband, you got kids, you got, and you're always finding things for families to do. What do you do?
So right now, I feel like I have like revolving hobbies. So this will probably change in like 3 months, but right now I've been doing a lot of beading. So
Oh,
I'll make myself little earrings because I like earrings. They're small. You only need to make two, and then you're done. And I'll do that in the evenings a lot. We just got a new puppy in December.
ooh.
So she's like 9 months now. And so I spent a lot of time petting my dog and working with her
Well, what kind
because
of dog is it?
she's a golden retriever.
Oh, so sweet.
That was
So
how I
those are
rewarded
good.
myself for finishing the MBA program, which is like not a good
Ah,
way to reward yourself for finishing a program. It's like, okay, now I will
okay.
not sleep for the
Now
next 2
a
months.
child, an animal child. Oh, that's where. Well, I can't believe it. We are out of time, Bethany, but where can people find more information about you, your company? Where do people contact you?
Yes, so I'm on LinkedIn. If you look for Bethany Winston there. My email is Bethany at kiddingaroundgreenville.com. And then, of course, if you want to check out Kidding Around Greenville or Kidding Around Columbia, I have websites for both of those. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram.
Fantastic. Seriously, I'm always amazed how fast these things go. I was like, look up, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're out of time. But I really enjoyed the conversation. I always love talking to you and
Yes,
watching
thank
you
you.
grow and expand. I'm excited for your journey and excited to see you in other cities. So thanks for hanging out with me. And for everyone
Thanks so
listening or
much.
watching us live, thank you for joining us. Again, this podcast will be published this coming Sunday and available on all podcast platforms. So please subscribe to Hello Chaos, like, comment, and share this great content and help us grow up and build a more connected community. Hello Chaos is again one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. Orange Whip is a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We are 100% free. Just an email to join the community, one stop content, all in one hub just for founders delivered in a weekly email every Sunday. We are currently in 3 markets in South Carolina, the upstate, Midlands, and Low Country, with goals to expand to be in 30 cities in 5 years. Again, this month's edition, the online edition is exploring the CEO mindset and challenges of shifting from working in the business to working on the business. And next month, we will be featuring women owned businesses and minority owned businesses and featuring those founders in the edition. That will be in our August issue, right? Right, Kristen? That's right. And if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or support us, head over to orangewhip.com. Again, that's orangewip.com, or send an email to hello@orangewhip.com. And while you're there, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to see your emails in there. I also want to thank our episode sponsor, the Upstate LGBT Chamber. Again, the first and only LGBT plus chamber of commerce in the state of South Carolina. They help professionals and allies who understand that diversity, equality, and economic empowerment are vital for any healthy community. They help create connections. They help get certifications for queer founders, and they are here to support you and a more inclusive and diverse upstate business community. For more information on them, go to their website at upstatelgbt.org. Y'all, thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It's where aha meets oh shit. I am your host, Jennifer Sutton, and I will see you again next week.